Welcome to the Combative Nerds podcast. Join us while we break balls and try to outwit each other at every turn while debating all things nerdom and trying to make sense of this world. Look, I'm not gonna lie, there's a Herculean task and I'm not sure we have enough brain power to do so. At the very least, we can laugh and offend each other through the process. Thanks for sharing your day with us. Now on to our show. Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Raiderlance and
IceyEyedGnome.
It is November 4th, and we are kind of frustrated because we just lost a half an hour due to technical difficulties on my end. So I apologize to you, sir.
It's all right.
It has been a while since we've talked to each other, and it's because I caught another cold. So this is my second one this month. My voice is going to be a little off. Want to warn you guys because there may be some hacking. I'll do my best to edit it out. Unfortunately, me laughing usually causes me to cough. So I also have a piece of gum in my mouth. Going to try not to smack it. Trying to take away this tickle. Trying to feel a little bit better. And the reason why I caught two colds is because God hates me. But that's for a different episode. IG, how you doing, brother?
I'm good. I was just going to say that at least you sound more manly now.
Yeah, I was editing a previous podcast, and I was a little disturbed at how high my voice could get when I'm excited. I'm going to have to work on that. That is unacceptable. Maybe I'll just put like a different setting so when I do my Mickey Mouse voice, it'll still come through with bass and tone in it.
Yeah. Get a cold every time we do a podcast.
I know, seriously. I'm just going to go licking handrails and, finding subways to ride. So because we haven't talked to each other for a while, I wanted to let you guys know that IEG and myself talked about kind of doing a little duo in Halloween costumes. And the proposed one that we were going to choose would be Shrek and Donkey. And here's the reason why. IEG has an ogreish demeanor to himself. He usually plods around barefoot everywhere. And maybe in about 10 or 15 years, he's going to have the same hairstyle as me and Shrek. Well, me, on the other hand, clearly I'm a jackass and I'm hung like a donkey. So it just seemed fitting that we would have done that. But because of the distance, we didn't get a chance. So I apologize.
I'm pretty sure that I remember a conversation where you said you were short and fat. So
I'm not short and fat. He is.
I grew up on a farm.
Well, either way, nice way to sidestep the Shrek comment. I'm sure I'll bring it back somehow. I thought that was a pretty good one. Now, in IEG's defense, he looks like Shrek to me because I'm so small. In reality, I'm probably the gingerbread man, hung like a donkey. But anyways, let's move forward. Today, we are going to be talking about She-Hulk, episode 4.
You got all the boys excited.
I'm sorry, not episode 4, the finale, the aftermath, and oh man, I just want to get into it. But we agreed that we're going to do a review of the episode, what happened, and then we're going to let IEG be wrong.
Yeah, okay.
So,
yeah, okay.
Go for it, IEG. What happened in this episode?
So, the episode prior to the finale, Intelligentsia kind of puts on a display for Jen at her award ceremony, and they show like the sex tape between her and Josh, and they get her to like Hulk out and rage out and that kind of stuff, right? That's where we left off. So it picks up after she's been arrested and is sitting in the same detention center as Abomination was several episodes earlier. And so they're kind of having like a talk about some of the legal aspects she's facing, and she's very angry and upset that this group, this intelligentsia group, like came after, and her attorney kind of advises her like, hey, this is more about you, like what they did made you react in such a way that now we have to worry about your legal battle. So she takes a plea deal or plea bargain to wear a bracelet on her ankle that prevents her from transforming into the Hulk. And as part of her release, she cannot transform into She-Hulk ever again, which also means she loses her career as a lawyer. And now no one wants to like hire her.
Right.
So her whole life's falling apart. She moves back in with her parents, like her friends and that kind of stuff don't work with her anymore. She kind of feels depressed and alone. And then her friends from the law firm, Pug, and I cannot remember the actress's name who plays her friend.
The paralegal.
Yeah. So they are able to kind of insert themselves into this intelligentsia group through posting a video that was provided by Jennifer's mother to the site.
Another quality example of her being a good Christian girl.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so Jennifer goes off to talk to Abomination because he's been through something similar before. This group kind of inserts themselves into intelligentsia, and they try and figure out like who's in charge and like how this happened to Jennifer. And it turns out they all end up at the same location, which is where the episode takes like a massive turn that I don't think anybody saw coming, where Jennifer breaks the fourth wall as she does, but in a severe way. She like is able to break through the screen in like a really cool transition where it makes you think that you accidentally pressed the home button or like went back to like Disney Plus's main screen or something. And then,
yeah, that's pretty nice.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool. But she goes to Marvel Studios and she has a conversation with Kevin. We all think she means Kevin Feige. Turns out Kevin is a robot who makes all the decisions for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And
real quick, did you catch the argument that they had on the design of Kevin?
Oh, about the hat?
The hood being the hat? Yeah.
Yeah, because
apparently the guy's known for always wearing a hat. So the director fought to have the hood lens or the lens hood look exactly like his hat. I thought it was pretty funny.
Yeah, Kevin Feige actually commented about it and said that was the one thing he didn't like. He was cool about the robot controlling everything in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but he didn't like the black hat because they originally had a black hat on him.
Well, men are sensitive about being bald, which you'll find out in about 10 years.
Probably not.
I'm just trying to welcome you, brother. Anyways, I'm sorry to derail it.
No, you're fine. So anyways, like crazy series of events happen. They change the ending and then it goes back to the normal episode after a couple of little jokes. And it ends with Hulking getting arrested and then...
the leader of intelligentsia.
Yeah. And then Abomination turns himself in for breaking his... what do you call it?
Parole.
Yeah. Parole violation.
Yeah, parole stipulations. Yeah.
So I got him 10 years extra back in the can. And then Hulk makes his return from Sakaar with his new son, which I like flipped out over.
Of course, yeah.
But
yeah, you'd been hoping for it.
Yeah, and then it kind of ends on a somber, sweet note with no real clear direction about what's going on in the future. But we do see like Daredevil and Jennifer kind of hanging out again, which is pretty cool. But yeah, that's it.
Well, thank you for that review. And let me go on to explain why all of that shit. This finale lost me. It didn't jump the shark. This was a snowball going downhill. And I had friends tell me, and they were right. I tried to defend this show. I tried to be even keeled. I tried to see it from both sides. And I thought the show did do that in the beginning. And as the show progressed through its episodes, it became more woke, more offensive to part of its viewership. And they masked the lazy story writing in a new novel way. So I think it was kind of a bait and switch. So I thought this was garbage. I overall, on the woke scale, this is like a 7. I can even watch a show that's a 6. I can even be like, okay, let me learn some stuff. This one can kiss my ass, just like the director. So I, in general, not a fan. I think all the criticism is well warranted. From my understanding, not sure if it was Rotten Tomatoes. I think it was a different type. But one of the gold standards of reviewing shows said that She-Hulk tracked about 70% in the beginning. And it fell all the way to 30. So it was like, Trump's Trump's approval rating. It was really high in the beginning and slowly dwindled. So I think this show was a build-up and then a bait and switch because the writers finally wanted to air their frustrations. How about you? What did you think in general? And then I'll give you my specific data points.
So I don't know how to argue with that because I didn't get any specific data points. But what I can say is that I wholeheartedly disagree. And I can't think of a single argument they make in the episode about some of the things that have happened in previous Marvel Cinematic Universe movies or television series and that kind of stuff that was not true. Jennifer gives like a really compelling argument about the daddy issues. And
Yes. I agree.
and
I didn't have an issue with that at all.
she points out plot points in different movies and different TV shows and like the issues that they've had, right? And even like Kevin, the robot, admits that some people like some series or TV shows or movies, whatever, more than others. But he was going to leave that argument up to the internet, right? So
let me jump in. I agree that her argument of Marvel movies or series being formulary, which means they get the character and the bad guys to fit this narrative and end up with a big fight. It's kind of like what I think of Cobra Kai, the Netflix series of karate. Their finale is always the same. Some huge karate battle or martial arts battle, and then almost like an introduction to the next bad guy. So I have no doubt that that's very common, and especially with Marvel because they've had so many winners using that formula. No issue with that at all. So that was my general point. It's still not why this show sucks.
Okay, well, tell me what you disliked about it, because like all I'm hearing is that it sucks, but I have no data points on like why it sucks.
Yeah. So this may be hypocritical for me because I shit on so many things, right?
Right.
I can understand why people may not like my criticisms or me in general. I am trying to promote a podcast, hopefully to people who like things being shit on, or at least like me sounding stupid and you guys pointing it out. That's cool either. I don't care. Listen either way. Don't laugh that hard at that.
Sorry. It's difficult not to.
So here's the thing. Marvel in their wokeness are trying to have a moral higher ground, to educate, to make people more open-minded, to understand the female plight and a female superhero. And they decide to do that by using Raider tactics and shitting on the majority of the fan base. I don't think you would disagree that when She-Hulk was, what was it, launched in the 80s, 70s?
Yeah, She-Hulk came out as a condition from the Incredible Hulk TV show where they were afraid CBS was going to like steal their character and make her into a female.
So from the 1970s until now, what do you think? 80, 90% of the fan base have been young males?
I don't feel comfortable making that kind of estimation, but I would say that like the vast majority of comic book readers are male, male characters and that kind of stuff. So
sure.
Yeah.
Them and I myself both would request that Jennifer Walters be more scantily clad. I get it. They're playing towards us and they wanted to change that and make it more of a level playing field so that females and males could both enjoy the show instead of a hypersexualized show that's geared toward men. Basically like She-Hulk attorney at law on Baywatch. Like they wanted to avoid that. I get it. That's cool. Here is my data point. Why would you make the bad guys of your show, your fan base, and any part of your fan base that is criticizing the way you are presenting the show? The members of intelligentsia. Okay, Hulk King is different. He's a bad guy because he paid somebody to have relations with her, film it, hacker stuff. All right, bad guy. Stole her blood. I guess they answered the fact that what was that guy's name? Josh. He was a stud, knocked her out, and then was able to draw blood from her and her not wake up. Right? So they cleared up that plot hole. He's a bad guy. Not talking about him. All the other members of intelligentsia, you can say, oh, also hacked, also did all these things. But what bothered me is make them all bad guys, not guys, which means they're bad. They portray them as stupid. The paralegal called them dweebs, trolls. They were making fun of people who criticized female Thor, which was a shit movie and underdeveloped character. She just became Thor and was perfect and had no issues and saved the actual Thor. Like it was a bad character development, right? If she wanted to be Jane Foster, good character development. I have no issue. But now she's Thor and she's a god because women are perfect, right? And so it came across that all these men were pathetic. They were losers. They were just misogynistic. And I'm sure there is a sizable portion of the fan base that is doing that. I'm not. But I fall into intelligentsia group because I'm criticizing this show, because I don't like the way they're taking it. They characterized it that if you criticize this show, you're being gross. You're disliking of a woman. And I think the history of from the 1970s of support of this small comic, and the majority of these Marvel viewers of this show are going to also be male. Why would you shit on such a large portion of them? This girl's a paralegal, right? I'm not saying that doesn't take any intelligence, but she can now outsmart a mastermind who's a multi-millionaire, and she can be like, what are those police negotiators talking into the earbud of the guy being a representative? She knows men better than a guy knows men, so that she knows what he should say in that type of situation, because men are so easy to figure out.
Okay.
Like,
hold on, because we're getting...
Fuck these writers.
We went from like one data point to like 15, and I can cancel out all 15 of them as long as I can remember what you said. So...
Why do you think I have 30 queued? No, this is... I'm going blitzkrieg on you.
Yeah. Okay, so first of all, let's like work our way backwards, right?
Like the writers? Yeah.
Yeah. No. So she's talking to homeboy Pug through AirPod Pros. I want to point that out.
Yes,
very
of course.
Clear,
nice.
Very clear audio connection. And then she is trying to tell him how to talk to these men because she's been on several dates with men of that type. And Pug
so that's the men she prefers? Got it.
No, but she's experienced more of it than Pug, who's like just a nice guy. He seems like kind of a dork. You know what I mean? But
oh, no, you're right, because the show also showed that if you date men, they're all garbage, because she couldn't meet any nice guys.
Listen,
and the one guy she hooked up, the one guy she ended up liking at the end, and you're gonna choke on this one, high value male who's also an alpha. Clear show of hypergamy. This is so contradictory. You cannot scream feminism and men are horrible and engage in hypergamy. You're going after a lawyer? Really? Plumber can't be a good dude? Farmer can't be a good dude? No, you got to be a lawyer who can also beat up most men. Yeah, no, there's no good quality men out there. Just these goddamn superheroes. Nah, man, this is bullshit. It's just laden, and I'm sick of it. Like, if they would have laid on 50% of this, like, I'll give the other perspective, right? Just give me the other perspective. But all the women are smart. All the guys are dumb. They're just trolls, and they're miserable, and they're anti-female. Really? And the only two good guys in this show, okay, aside from Hulk, is a weak beta male, which is Pug, and Daredevil, who is a man whore, but a high value male. So that's what makes him good. Like, no, thank you. I'm glad you're not getting a season 2, and I'm glad everybody else hates this show too. Why would you spin on us to this point?
I don't even know how to argue against that, except to say that, like,
you can't.
You're thinking about this from like WWE perspective, right? Where, like,
I don't disagree.
You hate the storyline and you hate the characters, whatever, that were presented and that kind of stuff. But everything is like conditioned to portray like something. Right? This is a show about superheroes. This is not. It's a law show.
Not at the end. At the end.
Well, at the end, more so, because a woman breaks the fourth wall, jumps through a TV screen while her cousin hulks out. Dude who runs Intelligentsia hulks out. Emil Blonsky hulks out. And then Titania busts through the wall. And you know what I mean? Like, just that's the epitome of superhero, right? Like, that's what you kind of expect to see. And so, like, this one, I think, took a different take and a different perspective and offered an alternative to that. And, like, I can understand how some people wouldn't like it or didn't appreciate it. But being a fan of the comics and that kind of stuff, She-Hulk was one of the first, if not the first, characters to break the fourth wall. And her and Deadpool are most commonly associated with breaking the fourth wall. And the fact that they do that so well throughout this entire show, like, surprised me. And it made me appreciate it. As far as like the men perspective and stuff is concerned, I don't think that this is a sample, right? This is like a sample in a show where it's talking about the plight of this woman, not all women, but it's a plight that women, I'm sure, can relate to, right? Because let's face it, there's a lot of really crappy dudes out there. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. My issue is with percentages.
Yeah, well, you're not going to get a perfect sample rate in a Marvel Cinematic TV show, right? Like, it's not.
No, man, no. That's like making Grey's Anatomy in LA and making 60% of the doctors Mexican. Like, come on, that's bullshit.
Well, dude, that's what I'm saying. You're looking at it from a WWE perspective. Not 100% of men out there are jacked and like 6'4" and can like suplex whomever. You know what I mean? Like, I walk through a Walmart. You know what I mean? Like,
I think you're mixing two separate things, and here's the way I'll justify that. I didn't start that way. They picked the fight. That is my issue. My issue is not with the fourth wall break. My issue is not with her taking control of her own story. My issue is not with her closing argument. I agreed with everything she said. My issue is not her critique of Marvel. My issue was point out and count on one hand, because that's as most as you will get, all the positive male characters in this role. Point out all the evil female characters in this role. Drastically disproportioned. Then you take a legitimate fan base with legitimate criticisms, maybe not the best hearted or intended, but legitimate. And you shit on them and you depict them as the enemy. Then you also add that they hired writers that specifically did not like the source material of She-Hulk. This is just malintent. They didn't come correct, and it showed in a dramatic fashion in the finale. And that's what turned a fan into someone who's not a fan. They didn't need to do that to achieve everything you're talking about. They didn't have to churn their fan base against them and repeatedly insult them.
I think that your idea that the proportions were like so blown on this one, as far as like men and women not being like equal and that kind of stuff, is just highlighted by the fact of the finale where they had like 40 dudes in a room who were complete shit, right?
Right.
Because if you look back at it, like one of the season's biggest villains is Titania, who is like the woman every dude in America hates, right? Like just they like
Was
her
she
on
though,
social
or
media.
was she just first?
She was a big part of that show. She was in several of the episodes.
She was.
From the first to the last.
Yeah, no,
right?
I don't dispute that.
So, and then you talk about the woman who, or the elf, whatever, who portrayed herself to be Megan Thee Stallion.
So two.
Right?
Correct.
Then you talk about like good people and that kind of stuff. So there's a couple of the female attorney and the paralegal were both good people. I think that Jennifer Walters was portrayed as a good person who had obviously some struggles and that kind of stuff. And there was like a lot of really crappy men too, you know what I mean? But there were some good dudes too, Daredevil and Pug and a couple of the other attorneys and that kind of stuff. Even the guy who she was lawyering against in the very first episode ended up giving her a job at the end of that episode. Her father was a really good, fatherly type figure. I think that's like a good established type character where it's like, yeah, this is what a father should do, in this circumstance. Sure. I'm bringing over a shovel. I'm going to protect my daughter, even though she has superpowers. You know what I mean? Like,
yep.
So I think there's a little bit more balance to it. Granted, there are in Marvel Universe period, there's more male characters than there are female characters in both,
correct,
supporting hero type roles and villains as well. So the number is like going to be skewed slightly just because there's more male characters. But I don't think that it was like a crap fest on men in general. I think that they gave some pretty good examples of what bad men were, and they highlighted a couple of good individuals of, what good men were. So I don't think that it's completely out of proportion. I don't think that it's blown out that bad. Because if you look back at it and you pick the characters off, it's like, was it really?
Yeah, I got to disagree. I got to go back to the numbers and the stats. Every speed date she went on ended horribly. The only good guy was a high-value man who couldn't love her for the person she actually is. The majority of the attorneys were either psychopaths or narcissistic, which is true. I don't have an issue with that, right? But the only lawyer who could get beyond that was Mallory Book, the female attorney. The Mr. Undied
right
guy who can't die.
Animan.
Right? He screwed over 10 women who were all acting reasonable and wanted a settlement from him. All the people from Intelligentsia. They even made the hairdresser kind of crazy, and he was a dude, but Let's be honest, he was very metro. I'm not sure if he was gay, so maybe he's not a good data point. But he wasn't necessarily the best guy either. Where you look at the females, they all had their stuff together, right? And I'm not saying there's not females who don't do that, but when you're trying to make it like all the females have their stuff together and there's a couple good dudes, it just don't preach to me about this. And that's where they lost me. I didn't care what happened. I didn't care about the execution of it anymore. I felt like I was being preached to at the very finale.
Yeah.
And it was the way the intelligentsia was depicted and criticized, right? There wasn't a smart one. They were all acting like frat guys. You know, they all had to talk demeaningly about women. Look, I don't have to act like that to still rip into women and all their problems, right? I can still have my shit together and still disagree with the way women conduct themselves. But when they're actually criticizing their critics, it's a way of shutting them down. It's a way of, when a girl does this, you're winning an argument, you're mean. That's what this show felt like at the end. And it was not only a gender argument, it was a writer versus viewer, right? So I know I'm focusing on all the gender aspects from wokeism, which has its place, has very valid points, but at some point, I don't want to listen to you just nagging and chirping unless you're going to act like a mature adult and have a legitimate conversation. But the writers were also like that. They were a bunch of babies. They wanted to do it their way because they wanted to put a mark on this show that had established source material. So my irritation is just as much with these shitty writers with their goddamn English degrees. Or journalism degrees, maybe if they're really fancy. But yeah, man, completely turned me off. I think it really bothers me because I liked half the show. I liked where it was going. I liked maybe all the way to episode 5. Episode was 6 because it was a superhero show, so I'm a typical fanboy. But that was episode 6, right? Where they had the big fight and Daredevil and all the fun.
Well, yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, they had me up until there. After that, man, please don't bring a season 2. And if you do, get a different director. Get different writers. Like, I'm not against a legal comedy. I thought the legal aspects were decent and good. I thought a lot of the female perspective about how it's hard for a woman to date and be a professional, I'm right there with you. But really, I'm a dick for the couple criticisms I'm going to have about females. Y'all ain't perfect. No. So you can't convince me otherwise, man. It's just, they didn't have to do this. They didn't have to turn me against them. So that's on them.
So you're against them mainly, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's mainly because of the criticisms of the members of intelligentsia, because that's what you keep going back to, right? It's like, it's always intelligentsia.
Well, no, that was the straw that broke the camel's back. They never depicted men as necessarily having their stuff completely together. And even if they did, they still had massive character flaws that made them either not love Jen or not be a good fit.
Dating. I don't think there's character flaws, man. I think, okay, I take that back. They are character flaws, but like, who does not have a character flaw? If you were single right now and you were on a dating app.
What was Jen's character flaw and how was it highlighted in the show?
She had self-esteem issues.
Exactly.
At first, and then she overcompensated, right? By like trying to like show up anybody who like said anything about it, right? Like she wasn't a good attorney. That starts from episode 1. She was trying to overcompensate.
Okay.
Because people didn't think that she was a strong, powerful woman, right? And so she tried to overcompensate. She was trying to prove all these people wrong, and then she lost her damn job. Then she got the powers of, the Hulk or whatever. She became She-Hulk through a freak accident and that kind of stuff. She lived up until that point. She lived in Bruce's shadow.
Quick question.
Go ahead.
People with self-esteem issues, are they usually looked as problems or victims?
I guess that would depend on who you're asking, right?
I think the typical depiction is them as victims. So when you say it's a character flaw, I agree with you that it's a character flaw. I agree with you that it needs to be addressed and corrected. It does not make her look bad. I'll tell you one way they did make her look bad. Her promiscuity. But I'm a male pig for saying that. I'm not supposed to think that, right? So self-esteem, I have to disagree with you. Promiscuity, apparently I'm wrong. What other character flaws did she have?
She drank a lot. You know what I mean? Like
right on. I'm not going to argue that. She's an attorney.
You know what I mean? Like,
being an attorney is a character flaw. So I'll give you that one too.
Yeah, she had like issues that we all deal with or have dealt with. You know what I mean? And like,
Sure.
I dated as recently as like 4.5, 5 years ago, and I was on, dating apps and that kind of stuff. And I'm telling you, man, like, even from like a guy's perspective, there are some terrible people out there and like some weird people out there. And like,
I agree.
When they went through that whole dating app thing, I was like, hey, even from like a male's perspective, I can relate. You know what I mean? Like, this is.
I agree. I agree. But there's too many segments of different population sets that were all bad in some way. The intelligentsia, Frog Dude and all his followers, all the male attorneys, right? And the only good male attorney was some beta male. So it was just, come on.
He was a sneakerhead.
He was a what?
He was a sneakerhead. And actually, like, her boss was, I think, like a decent person. You know what I mean? He was a very business-minded individual. They didn't really tell a lot about his backstory, but...
He was a psychopath.
He was good at his job.
They are usually good at their jobs.
I mean, like...
I'll give you that. They're cutthroat, yeah.
He was a workhorse, you know what I mean? Like, but he wasn't like an outright asshole. He was just an asshole when he needed to be, but he was very business-minded about it. So it wasn't like he was a bad guy. He didn't try and like defame anyone and that kind of stuff. He wanted what he wanted because he thought it would help his business. And that was pretty clear cut and dry.
The counterpoint was he was apathetic and didn't care about her feelings when she felt that there were conflicts of interest each time.
He didn't care that she didn't want to do it. It was her job. He wanted her to do her job.
You know what? If you put it in that perspective, my take was different, but you have a very valid point, and it could be that perspective is just as valid as mine. So, yeah, I don't know, man.
Like, we might have to agree to disagree on this. Like,
I think so. I agree that you're wrong.
Yeah, okay. I think the points and stuff they made were very, very valid. I don't think
which ones.
Like, dating sucks. The people of intelligentsia were like crap. You know what I mean? They were supposed to be. They were like partnering with this dude who was they were supposed to be bad. You couldn't like highlight a group that like just showed a sex movie and this guy who like knocked this woman out, like stole her blood, that kind of stuff.
I agree.
For money, you can't support them. You know what I mean? It's like, oh well, they're really nice people. You know?
No, I agree. But bad guys are bad guys. Why do they make the normal criticism online? Why are all those people intelligentsia? And in other words, it's like, will all intelligentsia think about that normal criticism? Or could normal people also think of that criticism? So it was too convenient.
That's the thing, though. It was only showing intelligentsia. It's not like they were on like a Google forum. It was intelligentsia's website. So it was this group of people who actively contributed to the situation, whatever that She-Hulk was in. So, like, these are those people. This is not just a segment of America. These are those people who were actively engaged in showing that video, in hacking those systems, in perpetuating this. So,
let's play your scenario that way, right? Okay. I'll concede to everything you said. So, why is it that you think the show didn't take the time to show moderate males with those criticisms?
Would it have helped the storyline progress? I don't think so. I don't think
that is a good point, but at the end of the day, it would have helped their ratings and to retain their fan base, which at the end of the day is their number one priority, not telling a story. It's the same reason why Disney is open about their wokeism. It's because of their agenda, and they think that they are going to get more fans out of it. Where this show has demonstrably shown that they're going to lose fans for doing it.
I don't think so.
Okay, how?
And I'll tell you why. So this show was a series, 8 episodes long, right? It was designed to introduce an important character or characters to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It was designed to fill in the gaps. By the way, that comment you made about like the dudes from Intelligentsia talking about Lady Thor, not once, because I watched the episode again, not once should they mention her death. So apparently this took place, and I don't know the timeline for certain, but like apparently this must have taken place before they found out that Lady Thor was dead.
Got it.
And even in the new Thor Love and Thunder, they talk about how bad she is at being Lady Thor in the beginning, right? But then she dies
Right.
like an honorable death and that kind of stuff, right? So
Right.
it's, I mean, they even like kind of poke fun at themselves and that kind of stuff. And the Thor, Lady Thor comic, or the Mighty Thor in the comic books and that kind of stuff was a really good storyline. And it was like full of drama and good storytelling and that kind of stuff. And I think they did an okay job at interpreting it in such a short time frame.
Okay.
That's another story for another day. What I was
Yeah.
trying to say is that, like, going back to those points and that kind of stuff about trying to like win over a segment or stick to their fans and that kind of stuff. I think the idea that introducing these characters in such a way that you develop a rapport with some of these characters, or you're reintroduced to characters that will be more important later down the road, was far more important than the overall storyline of this particular arc. So Scar, the introduction of Scar, the storytelling of the Hulk going back to Sakaar,
Mhm.
and the introduction of She-Hulk and how she came to be, bringing Daredevil back into the picture. I think those points, those major points, are going to lay the groundwork for in the MCU in the future. And I don't think that they really care as much about this particular story as much as they do about laying the groundwork for the future. So I think that in a year, when we get like Ant-Man, Quantumania, Wakanda Forever, all these other TV shows and movies and that kind of stuff, nobody's going to give a shit.
I think they can win back their fans, but I think they do give a shit. And here's the data point for this. One, the ratings dropped off. I think at the end of the show, they didn't even make the top 10 streaming shows anymore. She-Hulk used to be on there toward the middle or end, wasn't even on top 10 on the Nielsen ratings or whatever. Second, they're going to have fewer viewers because they've been turned off. So when you say all those things were very important to lay the groundwork, yeah, but there's going to be less people walking on that ground because of the way you lay that groundwork. You didn't need to do it like that. If they would have toned it down by 20%, made a couple more of the Kellys or Megans with the Y and 2 J's and a Z at the bottom, if you evened it out a little bit more, it would have been better. And I think it was a misstep. I think they're going to pay. I think people are tired of Phase 4 because it's, was it SheCU or people are calling it? Like a lot of people.
Are you on the Intelligentsia website looking that up?
Have a bad taste in the mouth because of the way Marvel's doing this. And here's my main data point. I think Marvel agrees because now they're not doing any more Disney Plus shows. They're doing special presentations or movies. I think they realize they kind of burned the bridge a little bit and this isn't going to work anymore. I think that is the biggest tattletale sign that they've actually announced they're done with Disney Plus shows. They're only going to do special presentations moving forward, especially since Werewolf by Night was a hit.
Well, that's what I was going to say about the ratings too. They kind of shot themselves in the foot by releasing like all this stuff at the same time, right? So they had the She-Hulk finale that came out around the same time frame as Werewolf by Night, around the same time frame as Andor, around the same time as Hocus Pocus crack of shit. So it's like they release so much content in such a short period of time that, like, I guarantee you, if She-Hulk wasn't on the top 10, one of those others was. You know what I mean? Like,
okay,
they kind of played themselves out. But I don't think that overall the fan base, if they weren't affected by episode 6, they definitely weren't affected by episode 8. You know what I mean? Like,
but they were. The ratings showed that not only. Okay, I understand your point about the number of people watching. So I'm not going to dispute you on the Nielsen. That was a decent counter argument that I can't disprove. But the actual rating starting at 70 and finishing, I think, around 30, 33 shows that by episode 5, there weren't as many people watching.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I can't speak for everybody. Obviously, it's my opinion, but.
Of course. Yeah.
I can't speak for everybody, but what I can say is that, like, by far, the vast majority of people that I've talked to really enjoyed the show and watched it until completion. You know what I mean? So,
okay.
I know that there were some arguments about the last episode. A lot of people had some issues with the last episode. They didn't like the fourth wall break. They thought it was stupid. They thought the way they played it out was dumb or whatever.
No issue.
But I thought it was
no issue.
I thought it was brilliant. It was unique. It's definitely not how I imagined the show would end. And as long as they keep throw in those kinds of plot twists and turns and that kind of stuff, like I'm in. I'm game.
Well, let's talk about the way they wrapped it up and how it was lazy writing. I, again, don't mind the fourth wall break. I don't mind the plot twist that they did. First off, Abomination. So he's just going to violate parole just to make some money by doing something he's totally going to get caught for. And all of a sudden those tracers or inhibitors are such shit that he can go in and out of it and not get caught. Why, in your opinion, did he violate parole? What was the good reason that he found? Just money?
I think that he wanted to live the lifestyle that he had dreamed of, right? You know, he worked his entire life. He was special forces and that kind of stuff. And he thought that, like, you know, obviously he had these like 10 women or whatever, like supporting him and that kind of stuff too. But
sure,
maybe he wanted to do more and that kind of stuff. I don't know. Like, most people break the law because they think they're not going to get caught. So he was a very intelligent person. And obviously he found a way to kind of outsmart that system, at least in the short term. So I think it was just, he didn't think he was going to get caught, and he did. And he's like, well, you got me. You know what I mean? Like,
can you agree that it just seems pretty convenient to wrap it up in 30 seconds to all of a sudden say, oh, he wanted to be Tony Robbins, so he was going to break the law. And then, yeah, he just agreed to violating and going back to jail for 10 years. Like, really? Abomination would do any pushback? Really? It was he just did that for the money? He had this spiritual enlightenment, but then he was so stupid to be like, yeah, I need to make some Benjamins. I don't know what to tell you.
Well, I mean,
it just seemed lazy.
You got to keep in mind, too, that the entire time he was in prison before, you know, that explanation of that 13 years, whatever, Wong was breaking him out to go put him in fighting arenas and that kind of stuff. Like, he was never in prison the entire time he was in prison. You know what I mean? Like, so it was, I don't know. Like,
could they have wrapped up that story in a better way?
Yeah, if they had like another episode to clean up some of the loose ends, maybe give some more information about Bruce and tie up that Titania storyline. And
again, very lazy. Oh, this is really big. It's going to lay the foundation. Here's my son. That's it.
Yeah, but I mean, it is a cliffhanger, and most shows that serve a purpose like that have cliffhangers.
Okay. Yeah, Titanium, not talking about more about Matt Murdock and how, you know, the family's trying to get him to, you know, put a ring on it.
Impregnate their...
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was just very lazy.
Yeah.
And you know what? I will make a concession. Maybe they were out of budget. Maybe it was only slotted for 7 and not 8. It might not be their fault. But it feels to me like a contractor who had great plans and blueprints and started building a house. And then last month or two, they're like, we're going to go over budget. All right, just slap the rest of it together. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what I felt like how the show wrapped up.
Well, they did make jokes about how, you know, like transform off camera because it's cheaper. You know what I mean? Like they made some jokes and that kind of stuff to point out some of the obvious flaws. However, I will say that, like, I don't think it is an obscene thought to think that maybe they filmed the first 2 or 3 episodes thinking like, we'll try it. And then by episode 5 or 6, they were like, oh, this character could really work and we should switch gears. You know, they have filmed and refilmed halves of blockbuster movies before just because they wanted to switch up the storyline slightly. You know, they changed complete characters, actors, and that kind of stuff before. So it could have been a scenario where they were on getting towards the end of that season and they were like, we have a new idea. Let's go a different direction. And then they had to throw this together. But I wish they had tied it up a little bit better. I agree that it felt a little sloppy, but I can also see how it could tie into something much larger.
Yes. They didn't explain why all of a sudden Jen now no longer had to wear the inhibitor and why she was allowed to become She-Hulk. Just because, I just want to make this real clear from a legal perspective. Jen going after intelligentsia was not a criminal case that she would be bringing them. It was a civil lawsuit, which means if somebody's on parole or someone has stipulations and they want to sue somebody for invasion of privacy, defamation, that's not going to change your criminal case or your agreement with the DA for wearing an inhibitor or tracker. So they kind of made it seem like, in my opinion, that because all of a sudden she found out intelligence and they were going to go to jail over this, that's not maybe in some states and all that. I don't know I think you're going to get a misdemeanor or 2, and then you're going to be sued the shit out of civilly. I agree with that part. But I was just like, okay, I didn't understand how that played out why he went to jail. I do agree she would have won a lawsuit. I do agree that she could have kicked his ass in the courtroom. I don't understand why she got to be She-Hulk again. Do you have any ideas about that?
Yeah, so my only thought process is they do mention that like the state had dropped all charges against her in the end of that episode, right?
Yes, but why?
So that leads me to believe that maybe the state found the fact that she was able to like catch these people, recapture Emil Blonsky, who was violating his parole and that kind of stuff. She'd done all these things. I know that I don't know much about law, but I can say that like if the state thinks that you can help them or be a benefit to them, they will help you, right? Just to get
sure. Yeah, there's plea deals all the time. Yes.
Yeah, so there could have been like some augmentation to her arrangement with them. I don't know.
Yeah, you can't. Your answer is just as valid as mine because of their lazy writing and not adding one more sentence.
Yeah.
To explain it. That's my issue, right? At the end of the day, she was brought up on charges for hulking out. That did not get resolved unless the DA, unless you're right, she did some type of plea deal to go after intelligentsia. Still not sure exactly what charges they would be brought up on, but okay, let's say there is something.
Cyber terrorism. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Let's say there's something, hacking or whatever. But then she still can hulk out if she gets mad at something else. The danger or the propensity for her to put everybody in danger because she can't control her emotions is still there. I don't see why the DA would just dismiss and be like, oh, okay, we understand why you did it last time, but don't do it again. Right? It is just lazy writing. Give me one or two more lines.
To that, credit, like I'm pretty sure Hulk killed a bunch of people in Age of Ultron and stuff. You know what I mean?
Okay, yes, in that universe, yeah. But they came out with the Accords because of it.
Right, but then they disbarred, or they, not disbarred, but they got rid of the Sokovia Accords, right? And then
because of the Thanos snap, yep.
And so you know what I mean? Like he's still a threat, technically. I mean, he's controlled his emotions and that kind of stuff, but he's still a Hulk. And if he gets angry, even slightly,
sure,
it's going to be a bad day for somebody, right? And so any superhero that gets, has emotions could potentially be a danger to the public. And so, like, I don't think their argument was fair to begin with.
From that perspective, I mean, I agree with you. I just, again, multiple examples of they really should have tightened this show up and not insulted their fan base.
They insulted you.
Yeah.
They didn't insult me at all.
Okay.
I'm more like Pug, except I don't collect sneakers.
Okay. Well, let me, I know we're kind of going long here. We'll edit a little bit, but there's one more point I wanted to bring out. I can only think of a couple things that might be more disgusting than this part of the show. One, it would be Ben Affleck in his role of Batman. That's horrific. And then two,
I hate you so much. You deserve that cough.
Yeah, if it makes you feel better, I'm choking. Okay. This is a PSA to any and all females, which are probably not listening. Do not stick your tongue out for pictures on a camera. It never goes out well. Doing your tongue out of the side of your mouth and doing crazy face is the present day version of getting a tongue ring in the 2000s. Like, men are going to view you differently. Don't do it, especially if you're looking for a man to settle down with you eventually. If you're, doing your hot girl summer and all that, then yeah, that's exactly what that says. Otherwise, knock it off and be civilized. It's one of the most irritating things while she's doing the college twerking dance. But then throughout the show, when she makes jokes, she still does that tongue thing. She did it when Abomination signed the plea deal, and then Jen looked at Pug and the paralegal, and she looked at them and then did a much smaller version of the tongue out of the side of the mouth. But you're not Jordan. Just please, women, I beg of you, for your own good, stop doing that fucking shit.
Hey, once a woo girl, always a woo girl. You know what I mean?
Well, okay, then own being a woo girl and understand that some males, and I would argue probably the males you want to end up with, are going to view you differently.
I don't know, man. Like, if a girl wants to have fun, you know what I mean? Like that kind of like, because like, what do you want? You want her to be like stuck up, stick up her ass the entire time, or do you want her to have like a little bit of fun? Personally, I would like to, like, I enjoy.
No, I'd marry Mallory Book in a second. Yeah, she might break your balls, but no, that woman's awesome, and she's good looking. So yes, I would rather I would rather a much more polished woman like that. Feminine, civilized. Jesus Christ, twerking with your ass out and your tongue out. Ah, Jesus. So, anyways, Jen, please be an adult. You're a goddamn attorney. I know she did it in college, but she has the remnants. I see the flashes of it, right? It's just there's a lot that annoyed me with this show. And I know I'm going to come off as female bashing. I'm not.
Yeah, you're intelligentsia. That's it.
Yeah. I really enjoyed Black Widow. All they had was the Red Guardian being an idiot and all the females being smart. I thought okay, fine. Cool. This show just too much. Too much. No mas, please.
Really?
What?
I mean, you thought Black Widow was less, like 90% of the cast was women. 90.
I'm okay with that.
Well, yeah.
I'm okay with that because they weren't bashing all the men. They did make the Red Guardian stupid.
There's like only one man, two men, and both of them were kind of bad.
Okay. I'm okay with that. 30 to 50 males were bad in this show, and very few were good. That was my issue. And some of them that were the high value males, the alpha males, or her family members. It's just we're gonna have to agree to disagree on this one, man. They have lost me as a fan of this.
Yeah, we're agreeing to disagree because I thought it was effing awesome. And if they were to do a second season, I would totally be down to watch it. But I do think that she will reappear in some form in the movies. I kind of hate that they trashed the character of Hulking, because since they kind of debuted Wanda's children and that kind of stuff, like they play a big part in the Young Avengers later with Hulking. So maybe they'll, revitalize that character in non-Todd form.
Hey, you know what? Another part of, I'll go back to the lazy writing. Correct me if I'm wrong. I could be totally wrong on this one. But the reason why Bruce Banner and Jen Walters were able to become Hulks was because their specific blood type or DNA was able to process the gamma radiation. Is that correct?
Yeah. Their blood was, yeah.
And it was based on heredity.
Yes and no, because it's just that some people can do it. It's not just, Bruce Banner and his family.
Okay, so here's my question. Is becoming a Hulk and processing a specialized DNA that is shared through heredity? Or is it like being a mutant where your DNA just is what it is and you got the mutation, so now you're going to get these powers?
It's kind of the latter. It's like if your DNA and your body can handle it, because there's Abomination. Hulking was not actually a Hulk. He was in the comic books. He was like half Kree and something else. But
okay, wasn't Abomination though? It wasn't through gamma radiation, wasn't it? Through a different type of super soldier serum.
Well,
it was blood from the Hulk.
Yeah, so he had taken like super soldier serum, and then like this version of Abomination. So the other one was like the super soldier serum that like turned him. But in this one, like he took the super soldier serum and then he got Hulk's blood. That goes back to the 2008 Edward Norton Incredible Hulk.
Okay. So, I'm partially wrong. I still think my point is somewhat valid in that pretty convenient that Hulk King was able to process the Hulk's blood and become his own Hulk.
Well, not by himself, clearly. He's like a moron. He just had a lot of money, and he had a team of scientists working for him.
So you think they were able to synthesize it? Okay, I didn't. Maybe I read into it wrong. It seemed like lazy writing, but okay, you make an argument for it. I think they could have explained it a little bit better. That fair?
He talked a little bit about how he's one of Jennifer's biggest clients, or that law firm's biggest clients. Super rich. He talks about buying a Wakandan spear for $1 million, which we've already talked about. That's ridiculous. Vibranium should go for way more than that. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, he just had a lot of money to spend and he knew a lot of smart people. He clearly was not.
All right, man. What are we going to review next now that we're done with this show? Or is there anything on the menu that's coming out? Maybe I'm not going to a movie theater. Let's be honest here. So once Wakanda Forever comes to Apple TV, then maybe we can review that.
Yeah, I'll let you know how it is. I'm definitely going to go see it. But
okay,
yeah, there's tons of stuff slated for the next few months, and I'm sure we can find something to argue about.
That's awesome. All right, man. Well, let me just apologize in advance for you getting an earful from your wife because of my rant, and just tell her it's okay. I'm still right. So
she will 100% disagree with you, and she'll tell me that after she listens to this.
Sorry. All right. Before I choke to death, we are going to sign out. If you guys are willing to listen, we are willing to talk if we're not choking. All right. Catch you later. Bye. That's it. That's our show. Join Fighter Wizard and myself for the continuation of our October Rapid Fire, where we'll be discussing role-playing games versus Japanese role-playing games. Please do us a favor and like, subscribe, share this podcast so we can get some traction. Once I get around to it, check us out on our socials. Combative Nerds on Patreon, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. You know the deal. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you next episode.